Hello, everyone. So this is our first live event. So I want to welcome everybody. My name is D. Scott. I'm from EDI, the Education Development Institute, and this is our first ever episode of Tuesdays with Schwartz. So I'm real excited to be with you. So today we're actually going to be talking about the brand new model education model that we're going to be rolling out to schools across America. It is exciting because we really do address some of the problems that schools have. And so we're going to get into that right now. So first thing is to pretty much explain, we all know that there is a problem with our public schools and our charter schools. We know this. We can't put a finger on it because unfortunately the people that work in education do a very bad job of communicating anything that has to do with education. All we know is that there's a lot of complaints. There's a lot of people that would like to do things differently, but it never addresses what the underlying problem is, and that's what we're going to do here in this channel, as well as on YouTube, on Twitter. I also write a blog on Medium, so you can follow me all over the place and figure out exactly what's the best vehicle for you to get involved. If you stay with me till the very end, I'll tell you exactly how to follow me, where everything is. But right now, let's dive into where we are. So there's been a lot of research on education and the educational system in America. Starting in the 1980s, there was a report called A Nation at Risk, which was commissioned by President Reagan. We will have that report available once we're actually right now putting it together. But we'll have that available through our site that you'll be able to log into. And so you'll be able to see all of this research that's been done on education for the last 40 years. But what's significant to understand is that all of the reports and all of the research has missed the mark. What they do really well is explain the problem. And so let's go into what the problems are. There are 5 gaps. The achievement gap, the digital gap, the equity gap, the educational opportunity gap, and the income inequality gap. All of those things are happening right now inside our schools, and there is no solution for them. Now, everybody wants to solve them. I need to make that very clear. No one wants them to continue, but there is no one solution that will fix all of those gaps and make our educational system fair and equal for all. It is just non-existent. What is the real problem? And so that's what I want to be able to tell you right now. The real problem is the school model, not the school. Hopefully that makes sense. We're going to go over what that really means. The problem that we've had so far is that we've been blaming the wrong people. I mean, in fairness, we've been blaming teachers. That's not good. We've been blaming principals. They had nothing to do with it. And we blame school districts who are powerless against this very powerful problem. It's the model, not the school. Okay? So let's talk about what the model is. And I'm sure you know it just by being in school. Again, one commonality that all Americans have is that we all went to school from K to 12. We were all there. So you know what the model is. It is one classroom. Okay, understand? One classroom, one teacher, promotes one learning style, usually lecture. So if you're good at listening, you're going to be very good in school. You're going to get good grades and you're going to excel. If you don't learn through your listening skills, you're actually going to fall behind. And that's what happens to most kids. It does not address multiple intelligences at all. It is one classroom, one teacher, one learning style. We do one pace of learning because there's one teacher. So the teacher can only go as fast as they can go. And if several students in the classroom are struggling, the teacher has to slow down. Now, we want the teacher to slow down. We want to make sure that we don't leave kids behind. That's what we all want. But we also don't want to sacrifice every other student in the room just because a group of students are struggling. That's the problem with the model. It doesn't allow for multiple students to learn at different paces. The model is one classroom, one teacher, one pace, one learning style. So it meets the needs of some of the students, and it only hopes to motivate kids. Again, I'm going to make that clear. There's a hope of motivation, which is why some school districts ultimately fail most of their students. And everybody knows that if you live in a school district where the graduation rate is only like 30 to 40% of the students, that school district is failing a majority of kids. Now, why is that? It's because of the model, not the school. So what if we could build a better model, right? I mean, isn't that the hope? We could build a better model. It would close the gap, maximize teacher talent, encourage student excellence, meet the needs of all learners, and use RTI whenever necessary. And for those of you that are not familiar with RTI, that's response to intervention. And all that really means is meeting the needs of all the learners. So if students are struggling, the teacher or support network can come in and say, okay, let's identify where you struggle and let's give you the support you need. Again, can we agree that the problem is the model, not the school? And if we can agree on that the problem is the model and not the school, then wouldn't it make sense that the solution is just to have a new model? And the question is, where is that model coming from? So that's what we've been able to develop. Now, I personally have 20 years of experience in education, and I have not been the type of person who has sat back and just read the newspaper, or I don't know what some people do in schools, but that's not me. I was a certified principal, a certified superintendent. I also happen to be a certified school business administrator, so I understand the finance and budget parts of how this all works. What I mean to say is that I didn't sit in my office waiting for things to happen. I walked my building, I knew all of my students, and I understood which students were struggling, which students were excelling. I knew everything about my kids. And what that means is that I understand where the problems in the one classroom model are and what this new model can do for schools. It can completely transform it. So let's figure out, so what are we fixing? We're fixing the one classroom issue, we're fixing the one teacher issue, we're fixing the one learning style issue, and we're fixing the one pace of learning. And so the new model is called 3 tiers of education, which is in stark contrast from obviously the one classroom. So 3 tiers that support student learning and 3 tiers that close the gaps. So let's do a compare and contrast, because it's kind of hard to think like just out of the box, what are we talking about? So one classroom is the old model, 3 tiers is the new model. We have one teacher in the old model. In the new model, we have multiple teachers because there's multiple tiers. So what happens is instead of the student being forced to go at the teacher's pace, the whole system is now designed for the student learner. And so the teachers, multiple, because it's at different tiers, they're all organized to help the individual student learn at their pace. So what we do is we take away one pace of learning and now add multiple paces of learning, as many as necessary, because now it follows the student's learning path. The other thing that it does, which we talked about, which is one learning style, again, in a 3-tier capacity, we can actually do multiple intelligences because there's multiple teachers working with students. So maybe the first class that they take, that first tier, is all a lecture. So now some students are going to get the information and some students are going to be completely lost. But what's happening is that the teacher is now taking notes and seeing which students are struggling, and then they get support through the second and third tiers, which means that the teachers that are now doing the second and third tiers can implement different learning styles. They can now say, all right, you know what? This group of students does really well what's called kinesthetic or hands-on learning. We're going to do project-based instruction with them, and we're going to help them learn. Other students may be more visual learners, which means they're going to do a lot more demonstrations, maybe videos, maybe like how-tos, break things down into smaller chunks and say, this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3. Again, every student's intelligence will now be met in a 3-tier model. And then the other thing is we're not going to hope to motivate students because we're using RTI. Students want to learn. All kids want to learn. That's the biggest myth, is that in certain schools, well, the kids don't care. That's nonsense, because I, for 20 years, taught all of those kids. They came from public schools, they came from charter schools, and they were labeled as they didn't care, they were lazy, they were bad. And none of those things were true. The only thing that was true was that the school and the teachers and the model never met their needs. And once their needs are met, everything turns around. So, what are the hidden benefits to this new model? Well, the first is that we're going to eliminate teacher isolation. In one classroom model, guess what? The teacher is in a classroom, you lock the door, and you never see them for the rest of the year. A bad model, and which also contributes to 1 in 5 teachers quitting before their 5th year of teaching. So within the first 5 years of teaching, 1 in 5 teachers, new teachers, quit, leave the profession completely. Why? Because the one classroom model is so bad that they can't get support. The other thing that it does is it requires collaboration, because now if you have 3 tiers and you have multiple teachers working with the same student, they have to talk. So they're going to have to collaborate. They're going to have to say, okay, so this is what I was doing. This is what we're going to do for support. Hey, can you do this in your class? Can you do this in your class? And they're also, the beauty of the 3-tier model is that all the teachers, especially at the first tier, are watching what's going on in the class. This is a fully collaborative model, and it is amazing. The other thing, the other hidden benefit, is that the 3 tiers can use RTI whenever necessary. In fact, it's designed to be RTI, which is a beauty. And the last is that it eliminates what's called the silo effect, which is now plaguing schools across America and is one of the major contributors to why students are failing. So I appreciate following. Again, first episode of Tuesdays with Schwartz. So that means that I will be here every Tuesday giving you an update as to what's going on. Hopefully it'll be groundbreaking, but maybe not. This is groundbreaking. This is the first time that in North America that schools have an alternative school model to go to. It's not a plan, it's not a curriculum, it's a way of teaching. And there has never been an alternative to the one classroom model before. So that's why this is so groundbreaking. And again, after 20 years working in education, I can tell you this works. So hopefully you'll follow me. Please share. So I'm on Instagram, which I'm going live right now. I'm on Twitter. It's the same. It's at Rewards Pro. So please follow me both Instagram and Twitter at Rewards Pro. There's also a YouTube channel which you can find at EDI, LLC, which stands for obviously Education Development Institute. And so I want to thank you all for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next week.